Howdy folks, Lisa here again at Everything is a Lie. Today we're going to look through Buckland Hill, but it was formerly known as Seven Hills, or in Noongar local Aboriginal history as the Seven Sisters. So it was also named by the Noongars as the gateway to the spirits of the dead, for which I don't really have any more information. But the land was heavily quarried and became, well, part of two small hills from the original seven. The seven was interesting obfuscation though, because I knew it would come up a lot, but as I see here, when you look up Seven Hills in Wikipedia, there are numerous, all over the world, seven hills. And this was the one I was thinking of, Seven Hills in New South Wales. I knew there were others, but was also noted here in Wikipedia, Revelation 17, which mentions a beast on seven hills. So what I'm seeing is a major cover-up of something. I can't really be sure what, but over two videos, I'm going to work through what I found, and hopefully by the end of it all, I'll come up with some sort of conclusion for you. Stay tuned.
Wake up and listen.
Okay, we'll start with Wikipedia because it's always good to see how right or wrong it is. Buckland Hill Reservoir is situated in Mosman Park, Western Australia. That's correct. This covered reservoir is the most westerly in the Perth metropolitan area and provides sweeping views across gauge roads of Rottnest Island, Garden Island and the port of Fremantle, and the mouth of the Swan River to the west, and Lucky Bay and Bicton and East Fremantle to the east. That's a mouthful. The reservoir was originally filled with water from Perth's Hill dams and features a water treatment plant. Most of Perth's water supply is now sourced from groundwater aquifers in the Swan Valley. Buckland Hill supplies water to the area from Fremantle and Claremont. The reservoir was built in 1925 on top of a limestone ridge adjacent to the Buckland Hill Lighthouse. In 1935, the reservoir capacity was expanded from 4 million imperial gallons, which is 18 million litres or 4.8 million US gallons, to 14 million imperial gallons, which is 64 million litres or 17 million US gallons. Thanks for the conversion, saved me looking it up. The Buckland Hill obelisk, believed to have been constructed as a trig point, let me get that, a triangulation station, and used in the hydrographic surveys of Gauge Roads and Coburn Sound. Yes, I know how it's spelled. It's pronounced Coburn in Western Australia. In 1872 to 1874, became an island when the reservoir was enlarged. When the reservoir was roofed in 1983, the obelisk was moved west to its current location. The hill was originally of much greater height, but was quarried for limestone for the nearby Mount Lyell superphosphate works, which operated from 1910 to 1969. In 1941, the reservoir shared the hill with the Australian Army's Leighton Battery. We'll also have a look at that before we finish up. The area around the reservoir is a popular parking place. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Anyhow, I'll look at some of these. What they don't say is the hill was originally of a much greater height. So this original obelisk, how many times was it moved in total? So originally convicts threw it up, as they did. But then the hill shrunk, so there's no mention of that change, and then you'll see the subsequent changes. Moving on. This was a weird link from Wikipedia. I'm actually going to read it to you from Wednesday, the 22nd of February 1933, the Daily News, from a window in Perth. Is this real news or is it fake news? I don't know. A potato tragedy. Skip that one. Totally irrelevant, but getting to the point. Clear vision. Although I have been a fairly consistent traveller along that road for a good many years, I had not noticed until a few days ago that Monument Hill, Cottesloe, with its surrounding obelisk, was easily discernible from Thomas Street, Subiaco. Not that my discovery was of paramount importance in any direction. I should say, however, that it shows the ever-changing nature of our landscape. I believe that has been only with the clearing of virgin bush in and around Hollywood, that's a suburb near Subiaco, that the hill has become visible from Subiaco. The distance from Thomas Street to the obelisk is about 8 miles as the crow flies. You may see it for yourself. It is clearly delineated, especially against the pink flush of an evening sky. It brings thoughts to mind of what a comforting sight it must have been to sailors of old when it was used as a landmark by ships approaching Fremantle. And its neighbour, Monument Hill, used to have a big brother, the original Buckland Hill, a big limestone outcrop standing behind it. Now Buckland Hill is dwarfed by its once smaller neighbour. The inroads of nature have not accomplished this shrinkage. It is due to the works of man. Between Buckland and the river stands the Mount Lyell superphosphate factory, and the workmen are gradually quarrying deeper into the hill face for its limestone. The last time I drove that way to catch a glimpse of the marvellous view of the river afforded from that point, I noticed about half the hill had disappeared. We won't go through the rest of that. So what happened to the hills? That's an interesting question. Let's see if this article helps us anymore. Sorry, from the West Australian on Tuesday the 9th of November 1909. The beauties of Buckland Hill. To the editor. Sir, I desire to draw public attention to a matter which, while it particularly concerns the district of Cottesloe Beach, is of wide importance. All who have travelled between Perth and Fremantle by road, river or rail must have noticed between North Fremantle and Cottesloe Beach the high hill crowned with an obelisk and known as Buckland Hill. While many thousands have noted this hill in passing, there are few outside of the local residents who are aware of the beauty of the view to be obtained from the top. I can with confidence recommend all who love the beautiful to pay the spot a visit, and they will be astonished and delighted with the magnificent panorama of sea, river, city, and unoccupied forest land which is spread around them. If this spot were more difficult of access, I venture to assert that it would be considered one of the show places of Western Australia, and all would before this be familiar with it, if not by actual visit, then through the medium of camera and the illustrated paper. For with the exception of the much be-photographed view of Albany Harbour and Perth from Mount Eliza, there is no view in Western Australia to equal it. Any visitor to this spot will notice that the vandal man is doing his best with hammer, gad, and explosion to destroy, by quarry away, what all will agree is preeminently suited for a public park. The body which is directly responsible for this vandalism is, of all bodies, the trustees of the University Endowment Lands. They were given the greater portion of this hill some years since. The responsibility for this initial blunder rests with Sir Walter James. I do not wish to be taken as finding fault with the idea of endowing the trustees with public lands. That was an excellent and admirable idea, but it was a blunder to include this hill among them, for I am convinced that no public-spirited citizen, after once visiting the spot, would ever dream of using it for any other purpose than of a public park. I believe the Cottesloe Beach Roads Board have done their best to stop these quarries, but without success. The reply from the university trustees being that they desire revenue. Now, these lands were set apart to further the interests of higher education. It will, I think, be conceded that there is nothing more conducive to that refinement of mind which is part of the object of higher education than familiarity with scenes of beauty. If this hill is not destroyed, but if left as nature fashioned it until in the future money can be found to improve it, it will be a refining and elevating influence to countless thousands in time to come, and will, in its own way, be a co-worker with the university trustees in the work of higher education. To destroy a source of pleasure and a thing of beauty in the name of education is surely a paradoxical proceeding. If this quarrying is not stopped, the hill will before long be a hideous white mass, a fruitful source of ophthalmia to all in the district, and a place on which only goats can roam. I appeal to the university trustees, to Mr. Bath and Dr. Hackett, the only two whose names I know. Are they, in the name of education and for the sake of £4 or £5 per annum, going to be consenting parties to a gross and wanton act of vandalism? Both are public-spirited citizens, and Dr. Hackett has, by his connection with the Caves Board in Kings Park, geez, there's another can of worms. The Caves Board. And other bodies shown his willingness to devote time and energy to conserving the beauty spots of the state, and I would urge him to keep destroying hands off Buckland Hill. It is not a Matterhorn, but it is one of the best things of its kind we have in Western Australia, and well deserving of his consideration. And I appreciate the need for the university's trustees for revenue, but I do not think that the present or any government would have the slightest objection to exchanging some other lands for Buckland Hill, which would yield as much or more revenue without destroying what is so preeminently suited for a public park. I submit this matter to the consideration of the members for the district, both council and assembly, and to the university trustees. Yours, etc., W. Somerville. I'm just going to stop here for a second and recap. So we had that Sir Walter was appointed to the Royal Commission to set up the university in 1909. It wasn't approved until 1911, and the university itself didn't accept students until 1913. Yet that article was written in 1909. Somebody's lying somewhere. And are they scapegoating the university, or was the university responsible and they've since tried to cover that up in some way? I'm not really sure, but by the looks of Winthrop Hall, it was not built in 1932 either. Moving on. Okay, here we are back at the Grove Library. We're going to look at quite a few photographs I have and point out a few concerning anomalies. Note, these all have numbers if you want to come back and look at any of them. Let's start with a simple one. Reservoir, if I can spell it. 52. Okay, so this is meant to be the original reservoir, 1920s. So, all right. Where is the obelisk in this picture? Unless they're looking from the obelisk. Moving on. So here, this one shows the obelisk in the background. Not sure. Okay, so that's the original configuration with obelisk next to however many gallon reservoir. Then oh no, this is the original construction. Okay. So I don't know where the obelisk is in any of the original construction photos. We'll see if we can spot it. This is an interesting wall. A very irregular shaped blocks. Moving on. We'll skip that one. Okay, so that looks very similar to that wall we just looked at, which looks like it's the construction in these walls. Not sure why those parts are darker. It's quite a strange image. So these blocks are very irregular size, but these look very regular. And we must be looking away from the obelisk because I'm not seeing it here. Some of the shadows look okay. That looks a bit odd. That must be something lying on the ground, not shadows. What else can I see? These people are all shadowed, but not casting shadows on anything conveniently. That guy has a little bit of a shadow. And the horse must be on Smoko because he seems to be just wandering around that ramp by himself. Moving on. Now, at first look, I thought this guy had 3 arms. I'm going to guess that's part of the carriage. I wasn't too sure about his shadow either. But it may be the width of the cart that's casting such a wider shadow than what he is. This does not look like a construction, so I'm guessing it is no, it can't be. So is this when they're still digging it out before they build a base around it? And this doesn't look like it's being constructed. It looks like big chunks of it have come off. So I'm really confused by this. I don't know, folks. Maybe all completely legitimate, but see, this doesn't look like a just straight dirt excavation, does it? Or does it? Limestone. And they've just chipped away at it. I wonder where that other image was that we couldn't see that, if that's where it was inside. There's those 3 things. Wait. Back. Those 3 things. Okay, so it's just out of shot here. And it goes downhill there. That's quite interesting. Oh well. I'm going to talk about the later images altogether en masse because some of them really confuse the heck out of me. Okay, so this would be the top, which says Australian Survey Corps. So this was a very top piece at the top of the obelisk when they moved it in 1983. Okay, skipping back to the older images, and I'll stick with them for the moment. So we're still in the black and white days. This is the finished extended reservoir in 1937, with the obelisk retained as an island. Hopefully there's some more images of that. I'm assuming that's the view from the reservoir at the time towards Cottesloe Beach. Okay, this is pretty interesting. So this is extension in 1935. So this all looks very stable considering it doesn't look finished. And they've got stuff piled on top of it. So I'm going to guess it's on stone. But then it didn't look like it was on stone before. Anywho. And this looks like block construction. Again, but a much smoother finish than the blocks we saw before. And they look like larger blocks. But then it's odd that this piece... Now, I shouldn't question their construction methods, but... So I'm trying to place, you know, if any of these photos were taken around the same time, where they were taken from, but conveniently, it's nigh impossible. Lots of cloudy weather, very vanilla sky here, and some amount of pixelation. Can I zoom in any further on that? Okay, so they are pretty ordinary images, but I did note that these things all are very pixelated around the edge. I don't know. But to me too, the height that this photo was taken from, it's either just below the lip of the dam, in which case it's blocking out the horizon, or we're standing at the lip of the dam. Reservoir, not dam. In which case, where is the horizon? There should be water or land visible. Anyway, moving on. Is that the same photo? I think it's the same. $1935 when filled. Well, where's the obelisk there? That's got to be the original, not the extended, surely. Okay, so this is meant to be during the extension. So they've dug all this out. This is all excavated, but over here it looks like blocks. Or is it quarried in some way? Or is it covered in something? I don't know, this is a very odd image. And I must say, if this is 1935, then I hope these ladies are wearing beachwear, because that would be very indecent to be exposing their legs, not on a tennis court or a beach. Are we at the end? We're at the end. Okay. I'll quickly go over some of the more recent images from the 80s. 1983 is the date they've given for the roofing works of the reservoir, and that involved then removing the obelisk entirely and relocating it outside the reservoir. I'm just going to say straight off the bat, this sky looks very concerning. So this, by rights to me, should be, we're looking at the horizon of water in the background there. The reservoir must be behind us somewhere here. And this should be the new incarnation of the obelisk base. But the other images show columns inside it. So I don't even know if I'm looking at the same thing. Either way, we're not inside the reservoir. This isn't a roof support. See what else we can see. We talked about that. Australian Survey Corps. Again, this must be outside the reservoir because we're not deep inside the reservoir. We've got the horizon back here. And there are concrete columns inside to hold up the obelisk. And a ladder lean. A newie ladder lean. So this then conflicts with some of the other images. Just checking the date, 1983. So back to that one. That one doesn't have, unless we've already completely covered in, doesn't look tall enough for that, does it? Where are they? Same crane. I don't think it is the same crane. Oh dear. Conveniently can't really tell either. Okay. Again here. Now, I thought it was odd that these were such irregular shaped looking blocks, but that's how it is currently. So I don't know if that was matching an original or attempting to match the above. But again, here are these columns above or inside, which don't appear in some of the photos but do in others. And then these are huge blocks. And not really the right finish to put these against. But anyway, I don't know. That image does look very weird. And I don't know what this big mound is here. So this is the reservoir. This almost looks like a watercolor. I'm just going to assume that it's poor 80s photography. Strange. So have they dug it out deeper? Or have they built all that ground up around the edges? Because this was meant to just be roofing works, not extending. Very dark and stormy. Again, see, this looks like it's been built up, sand in front of the walls. Or have they excavated it further down? The reason I'm questioning the images from the 80s as well is the very final images look very different, considering it was just meant to be a roofing project. Oh, what's that going on down there? Ooh, what's down there? Okay. This must be looking back towards Perth? No? No, there's ocean there. So that might be Fremantle down there. Okay, so that would be looking south. I don't know if any kind of reference is really going to help us. But that would be how I would expect it to look. There's works going on around there, but essentially the rest of it is intact. And they would put roof supports in. And I initially thought when I looked at a lot of these photos that these things were roof supports, and I realised they're all outside of the reservoir. So it is the obelisk with the coming and going concrete columns inside it. No concrete columns there. Let me just go back and check dates. 1983. Re-roofing. Sorry, roofing. Just comes straight through the wall there. That's interesting, isn't it? It must be the pipeline. Okay, let's look closely at this one. This one does my head in. So this has the columns. It has these great monoliths. It has a Channel 7 news van. For what purpose, I don't know. A very picturesque sky. We've got horizon in the background, water. And it's something 4355. Interesting. Is that an 80s image? It looks completely fictitious to me. Sorry, folks. Am I losing it? That's a very odd image. Stock photography. Category. Illustration? Illustration. I'll try not to lose sleep over that one. Moving on. Again, here, 1983. We're not in the reservoir, are we? That looks like reservoir wall. So these are meant to be inside the obelisk? There's not a roof support outside of the reservoir. Here. So they've put a concrete base, concrete columns, and a great concrete pad to build it on. Yet these seem to disappear far too quickly into construction. As far as I can tell. Pieces of the obelisk, I'm guessing. There they are again, 4 columns outside. This is where they took it from. Wouldn't mind another angle of that. And there it is, out there. Okay, so that's before it was removed. This totally makes sense. They've had to build a ramp in, and here they've built a direct access across by filling it in. with fairly clean fill. So that must be deconstructing it. Same. So now remember, this is the same obelisk that has been in the same spot since what did I write down? Since 1880. Now this one completely spins my head around. Okay, so we go from this, the obelisk gets moved out, and we have a damaged reservoir in need of repair to be roofed. Then, voila, all the walls start leaning back further. So I'm not sure what happened there. But suddenly the whole thing is a different profile. Buckland Hill Reservoir, Mosman Park, 1983. 1983, reconstruction of reservoir in progress by, is that Metropolitan Water Authority? Monument being resited outside reservoir. Yep, we got that. Adaptation. Now, I'm sure it's not that close to the reservoir. And what happened in between the other photos and these photos? Wonder what's down there. With a very convenient ladder lean. I love it. Look how close that looks to the reservoir. It looks right on top of it. Wait on, let's look at that. So this is the reservoir now, under work, under roof. Under EMFs too. Okay, so that is the finished roofed reservoir. And that distance is a lot greater than in that image. And this is an image from 1983. Let's look at that again. Where does the reservoir actually start sloping? Of course, that would be where the truck is, where I want to look at this side of the reservoir. Okay, that's so funny. It's so typical. Okay, so the roof rises up from the top of the wall or outside the wall. It's definitely not inside the wall in any fashion. Thanks for your help there, Google. Where else can we view from? No, it's not going to let us anywhere up there. Okay, where were we? Newy, Ladderlane. So, 1983, the obelisk moved dangerously close to the reservoir and the walls slid out a bit, and I must have fallen into an alternate reality. I don't quite understand. Let's move on. Did we look at this one? 1937, completed? I think we already looked at that one. Almost looks legit. From above, we looked at that photo. We looked at that photo. We looked at that photo and that one. And that one. And that one. Beautiful. Next. Okay. That's interesting. Where's this? 1952. Scouts. Where? I don't know that obelisk. Where is it? Collie. Okay, that's got nothing to do with us. Moving on. Okay, we've seen that one. Seen that one. And this was the original thing as constructed by convicts, which, so I found out yesterday, has a basement. Maybe. $1924. Okay, before we wrap up the photos, I just want to make sure we haven't missed any quarry photos. Now, I think we saw this one previously. No, we didn't talk about this one. Lime kilns on Buckland Hill around 1920. Are these lime kilns? Is that what a lime kiln looks like? That looks not dissimilar to the wall we looked at for the dam. And that looks like a different quality build, and that looks like a totally different quality again. And that covers up a lot of stuff. So this is quarrying. 61, right? That's not cutting blocks, is it? That looks mostly like sandy. Okay, this one kind of threw me for a loop. So 1893 we've got on this one. Rocky Bay Quarry. So this is on the riverside, close to where the squared off bit is. And 1893, looks like they had taken away a large amount of ground even back then. Of course, that's working on the premise that this is all legitimate. This is a real photo. And they're carting it out by rail, I'm assuming. Wow. 1893, so that well precedes the superphosphate works as well. Geological phenomenon. Man-made geological phenomenon. 1893. No other format. State Library of WA. I'll have to take a look there. From the State Library itself, same image. Series photographs acquired by WA newspapers for possible use in their weekend news flashback column. Couldn't help myself, knew I was missing something. Look at this photo. So this is the lime kiln I was just looking at, a supposed lime kiln. What's this? And I don't think we can see that from the other image, can we? And this? What is this? Is this area quarried out already? Osborne Park. We're in the right place. Minnam Cove, Rocky Bay, 1920s. Thanks, Grove Library. Again, more questions than answers. I can see why this video took so long to make. I had to remember that I had saved this in my reading list some time ago. And I'm glad I found it before I put the video out, because it's the most bizarre article I've ever seen, I think. And it's very short. Buckland's Hill. So this was a legitimate name. Buckland's Downs, numerous different names for the area, including, as it's now, Mosman Park. Damage to the obelisk. Some of the stones in the basement of the obelisk on top of Buckland's Hill have been removed, evidently wantonly. Okay, well, whether they were removed wantonly or not, why does an obelisk have a basement? I mean, I'm just going to have to assume that it doesn't actually have a basement and that they just mean the base. But I had to include the article because I saw it, and you make up your own mind. It's odd, to say the least. But as far as I can understand, basement means basement. Why would it have a basement? At this point, I kind of feel like I've been pranked. The matter should be looked into, since the obelisk, it is understood, incorrectly I think, is used in the steering of boats into Fremantle Harbour. They would have to have a light. Anyway, the obelisk is also used as a trigonometrical station in connection with the survey department. Recently, the ladder leading to the top was taken away. I'm not even sure why you'd have a ladder leading to the top. But anyway. Oh, how about this one? Did they move the basement when they moved the obelisk? If you can answer that, please let me know. Okay, before I wrap up today, I just wanted to pop this photo in. This is supposedly another quarry in the area. The little railway track just runs out there. And only one cart. It really doesn't look like much of a quarry to me. I will also note that the cart has a bit of a shadow. This guy casts no shadow whatsoever. They've done a good job there, if that's added. So all this is blocked in and a jetty created, although it does look a bit odd in places. No shadow. It's not much of a quarry, folks. This is very interesting, though. The shape of that, very arch-shaped. Anyway, the last things I wanted to include were the opening images. So this is the grand opening in 1935. Stepped pyramid, anyone? So looking at the height of this photograph, that must have been taken from somewhere actually inside the reservoir. How do I go back? I think a lot of these are doubled up. I'll just try and get through them once. So from my reckoning, that's about where the obelisk is now, where these people are gathered. There's no horizon in the background there either. I don't know how legit these photos are. I really have no idea. grand opening. I don't know who any of these people are. I didn't even bother looking. Just going to leave my skeptic hat on and take a look for yourself if you're interested. The overall shape is quite perplexing. I don't know why they couldn't just go with square or rectangle, why it has to be the shape it is. Same again. Okay, I think they're all doubled up from here. We won't go through them. I'll leave you the link if you want to look at them. The other ones I wanted to look at were a couple of aerial photographs. I couldn't find anything useful in the way of drone footage, but it's all built out now. So this is an excellent one, I think from the 70s somewhere, showing the overall shape of the reservoir. And this, the way this all slopes down, there's a few interesting land shapes in there. That pointing due north, cut out here. Does kind of look a bit like they cut the top off a pyramid to me, but I'm not saying that it's, anything akin to the pyramids we see all over the world. It's just interesting that they've taken so much land away and some of the shapes that are left. So this is where we ended up, I think, the Deaf Institute, somewhere here in Cottesloe, and we might have looked at one other building down here. So this was before all the housing went in, all the new housing on this side. And this would have been where the superphosphate works was. And the other one is a little bit later, showing a bit more development, and the roofing has gone on to the reservoir, and the obelisk moved over here. And all these strange cutouts here and this big ridge. So this is where the battery is, the Leighton battery, the World War II tunnels, etc. We'll come back and we'll have a quick look at that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what's in between where I started up at the asylum and never got finished and ended up in multiple quarries. I just couldn't leave this one alone. It's very strange. It was meant to be 7 hills and that's all that's left. I don't know, folks. And the lighthouse, that was the only other thing that needs to be covered on that hill, that specific, not hill. The lighthouse, I can't find a date when that went in. So it's not specifically a traditional lighthouse, it's more of a beacon. This is probably a better place. We looked at Arthur Head. The north and south moles are on the harbour. We'll come back to those, and we're definitely going to come back to Woodman Point because I want to compare that to some other lighthouses that are still standing. But the Buckland Hill one, this is Lighthouses of Western Australia. You'd think they'd be some sort of authority. They can't even work out when it was built. So it's large blocks. I'm going to guess limestone, or it may well be some sort of other masonry. These were interesting. Is this the remnants of a buried tower or something? I couldn't tell you. Nice antenna on the top there. But no date. I don't know when that was built. So fill in the gaps, folks. If you know, let me know. And I'll wrap up there and come back, and we're going to have a bit more of a look at the quarry, and we're going to have a look at the battery, the construction photo. I found one construction photo, and an overview of what else is in the area, just because I am fascinated by that point of the river and that strange square shape. I also found an interesting alignment between this obelisk, the nearby one, and some others up and down the coast. As for the navigational marker, I can understand if they used it as a survey point. You've got to start from, somewhere. But as a navigational marker, well, if you're between Rottnest Island and the coast of Western Australia, I think you have a pretty fair idea where you are. You don't really need a little blocked marker on the top of a hill. But anyway, what do I know? I've never even been offshore other than on a ferry. So thanks for watching. Catch you again very soon in part 2 of this. And stay well, folks. Thanks for being with me. Bye-bye. And they've just put, excuse me.
Forage. Gee, that's a funny looking old phone, isn't it? We got the same in the bush at home. Yeah. Okay.
Well, sorry about that, folks. That was ironically the Water Corporation wanting to know if I was going to pay my bill anytime soon.
Nah.
Lovely people. Anywho, where were we?